Hello, everyone. Hello. Please do not stop enjoying your fruit. Don't let me interrupt you. Well, Excellencies, business leaders, distinguished guests, good afternoon, and welcome to the United Nations Private Sector Forum here in the Delegates Dining Room at the United Nations headquarters in New York. This event is hosted by the United Nations Global Compact. I would like to thank our co-host, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UN DESA, and the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC. My name is Tolu Olubami. I'm a social impact executive and former United Nations appointee, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be here with you today. I will be leading you through a program designed to stimulate a multi-stakeholder dialogue and help us align on an urgent and collective course of action to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Today's event actually marks my 5th year in a row hosting the Private Sector Forum. The first time I had the honor of leading this esteemed gathering was also the last time we gathered in person in this room. This is the first time in 4 years that the Private Sector Forum is back in person at the United Nations headquarters, and I am thrilled to see every one of you and incredibly excited about the program that we have planned for you. At this critical juncture, all stakeholders, including governments and business leaders, need to rally around a shared mission to generate shared prosperity for all. That said, today we will aim to inspire and challenge organizations to set measurable, credible, and ambitious targets aligned with the 5 systemic areas where the private sector is best positioned to advance the 2030 agenda and drive progress across all 17 SDGs. These 5 areas you may want to know are living wage, climate change, water stewardship, gender equality, and SDG investments. With that said, let's kick off the program, and I invite you to please continue enjoying your appetizers. First on the program is a contribution from the world of music and the arts. Please welcome to the stage UN Environment Goodwill Ambassador and 3-time Grammy nominee, Rocky Dawuni.
Let me check. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Yeah, 1. Check mic. How you all feeling? Let me hear you. How you all feeling? It's a beautiful afternoon to be here in this incredible space to deliberate, create ideas for the future, align leaders from various sectors, business leaders, political leaders, social leaders. But the purpose that we're here is to align our purpose to move the future forward. So I am here to be a catalyst, using music to inspire you, so that in the long run, what really comes out of these deliberations will be one that will uplift everybody. So I'm going to start with a song, and this song is celebrating all of us. It's a song called Beautiful People. So if you can clap, you can join in. If you can nod your head, you can join in. But it's a song about all of us, how beautiful we are and how fortunate we are here together at this moment in time in history. Thank you.
Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. I dedicate this song to you, my beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. Here I come with the love, oh beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. There are many things we cannot hide. There are many bonds that can be undone. Just like our bond, yeah. Everything in life is a sacrifice, but I know it was worth the price, for I did it for you. I dedicate this song to you, my beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. Here I come with the love, oh beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. From every corner we'll be blasting, from every channel we'll be blasting, and you know I did it for you. You know that music is a language to free us from every bondage, so I sacrifice for you. Oh, for there are many things we cannot hide. There are many bonds that can be undone. Yet I did this for you. Whoa, I dedicate this song to you, my beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. Here I come with the love, oh beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. Now if you can clap, let me see you. Join me, you know. Tap, tap. Whoa, whoa, whoa. From every corner we'll be blasting, from every channel we'll be blasting, and you know I did this for you. You know that love is a language to free us from every bondage, so I sacrifice for you. Oh, I dedicate this song to you, my beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. So now let me hear you sing. Here I come with the love, oh beautiful people. Beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. Everybody, let's go. Here I come with the love, oh beautiful people. Beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. And now let me see you raise your hands, everybody, if you're present. You got to show you are present. Show your hand. Whoa, yeah. Whoa, 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 yeah. I dedicate this song to you, my beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. All together now. Here I come with the love, oh beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. I come here with the love, oh beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah. Thank you. What an amazing audience. Are you ready to sing, everybody? Let me hear you. Are you ready to sing? Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. Every day, in every way, oh, I'm gonna let my whole life shine. Every day, in every way, oh, I'm gonna let my whole life shine. On and on and on and on, for the world to see. Yeah, yeah. Oh, people, I am ready. Chapter new beginning. When every little step I take will reach for a higher ground. It's not gonna be easy. Fate will let it be. And I know with you by my side, it's all gonna be alright. I'll sing, hey, I believe we can shine a light so bright, so bright. I say, hey, I believe we can shine a light so bright, so bright. Every day, in every way, oh, I'm gonna let my whole life shine. Every day, in every way, I'm gonna let my whole life shine. On and on and on and on, for the world to see. Whoa, whoa. Light up the darkness with the positive spirit. Oh, let the sun shining in with the wave of a joyful sound. Whether high or low, I will not be afraid to lift my head up, reach and touch the skies. I say, hey, I believe we can shine a light so bright, so bright. I say, hey, I believe we can shine a light so bright, so bright. Let's sing. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, now we sing. Hey, I believe we can shine a light so bright. One more time, everybody. Let's go. Hey, I believe we can shine a light so bright.
Wow, absolutely incredible, Rocky. You have reset the entire tone. I feel like I even forgot to button my jacket and the music was so good. Like, what is happening here? Thank you so much, Rocky. It's fantastic to have you back with us in person again. What an incredible performance. Next, we're going to have a short film introducing the UN Global Compact's newest initiative. Forward Faster challenges businesses to raise their ambition levels by taking tangible, accountable actions in 5 areas: living wage, gender equality, climate, water, and sustainable finance. Immediately following the film, Sanda Ojiambo, Assistant Secretary General, CEO, and Executive Director of the UN Global Compact, will take the stage for welcoming remarks. Enjoy the film.
The automobile is a fad, a novelty. Horses are here to stay.
I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers.
Women cannot do men's work.
Sustainability is important, but we have more urgent issues.
History has taught us that the leaders who succeed are the ones who meet the needs of the future by moving forward.
To achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, we need forward thinkers. Those who see the SDGs as a driver of growth, not reputation. Who are busy making progress, not just pledges. Who know sustainability is the future, not a trend.
Because right now, only 15% of the SDGs are on track for 2030. Some are even moving backwards. And the majority of businesses aren't setting bold enough targets.
Forward Faster is here to guide companies on the areas where they can make the biggest, fastest impact for 2030.
Because sustainable companies give us the best chance of achieving the SDGs. But we need you to take more ambitious action.
The people and planet of tomorrow are relying on the forward thinkers and doers of today. Don't fall behind the times. Move forward faster.
You think they're gonna do it?
Good afternoon, everybody. Excellencies, Secretary General, business leaders, colleagues, and distinguished guests. Warm welcome to this 2023 Private Sector Forum. And it's so wonderful to see so many familiar faces and friends in the room. It is indeed an honor to have the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres here with us today. Thank you, SG, for your time. I would also like to thank our co-hosts, the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, and the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, DESA. I think from this short clip that we've just seen, we can all agree that the business leaders who succeed are those who can identify and meet the needs of the future. Of course, in today's fast-changing and interconnected global environment, this is not an easy task, and we've heard this from all of you over the last few years. Over these years, we've seen global crises deepen and multiply at an alarming speed, threatening people and threatening our very planet. And we know that no sector alone can solve challenges of this magnitude. The future we want is quickly slipping out of our reach. And to rescue that future, we need forward leaders, forward thinkers, and forward doers. We need bold private sector leaders committed to working alongside governments and civil society to get the 2030 agenda back on track. Our new Forward Faster initiative is designed to guide and support these leaders in areas where business is best equipped to accelerate sustainable development. I would like to thank the over 137 early mover companies who have already joined Forward Faster and the supporting organizations of Forward Faster that are in the room today, and I'll just name them briefly: the International Labour Organization, Living Wage Foundation, the Sustainable Trade Initiative, Champions of Change, the International Trade Union Confederation, the International Chamber of Commerce, and the International Trade Center. Thank you, all of you, for your bold leadership. I look forward to discussing this exciting initiative and the opportunities that it offers later in the program. It is now my true honor and privilege to invite a great forward thinker and a forward leader and a forward doer to the podium. Mr. Secretary General, we warmly welcome your remarks. Thank you.
Dear friends, it's an enormous pleasure to be with all of you today. We are in a critical moment. We have the international community as a whole has adopted the Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, But 8 years afterwards, we are not moving in the right direction. In many aspects, we are even moving backwards. And it is clear there is not enough public money and public investment able to reverse these trends. The only way in which we'll be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals if we create the conditions to allow for a massive private finance and private investment in the Sustainable Development Goals. But let's be clear, those conditions are not yet created, and we need to do everything to make it happen. First of all, there are some systemic injustices in today's world. We have an international financial architecture that was designed after the Second World War, corresponding to the economies and the power relations at that time. They are totally outdated today. And the result of this is that the international economic and financial system is deeply dysfunctional, outdated, and unfair. And it is completely different to operate in a country of the European Union or to operate in a country in Africa or Latin America, even if both countries have the same kind of good governance and the same kind of, I would say, adequate policies. Now, we have been insisting on the need to reform the international financial institutions to make them truly universal and to make them corresponding to the realities of today's world. On the other hand, we recognize that developing countries are facing enormous challenges. Africa has 60% of the global solar capacity, but only 2% of the solar investment is made in Africa. And solar is the cost of capital. And the cost of capital in Africa is extremely high compared with the cost of capital in the developed world. And so we need to take a number of measures, concrete measures, even if the reforms of the international financial system will take time, in order to mobilize enough resources to the developing world. And that is why we presented the SDG stimulus. And we believe that with what we are proposing in relation to debt relief, in relation to the rechanneling of the special drawing rights, in relation to the recapitalization and the change of the business model of international financial institutions, namely multilateral development banks, are all instruments in which we can diminish the present gap in the availability of financial resources for developing countries. But even with all of that, it's not enough. The point is to make sure that private finance and private investment are available for what needs to be done. We also need to create a number of specific conditions. First of all, private investment needs to look at risk. And in many parts of the world, that risk is very high. We need to be able to de-risk those situations. That's why we have been insisting that multilateral development banks should, beyond their operations, be much more engaged in guarantees, in being first risk takers in coalitions of different financial organizations, and in other interventions aiming at de-risking private finance and private investment in developing countries. Second aspect that is clear is that we need good governance. And it's very important to ask governments all over the world to adopt the right policies, to fight corruption, and to create the conditions of good governance that allow for private investment to feel more attracted to those countries. And then let's recognize that both in the developed and in the developing world, we have a number of regulatory frameworks and a number of policies that are an obstacle for the private sector to do the right thing. Just an example here in New York. Speaking to the leader of one of the most important asset owner entity in this city, he was telling me that for years and years they are trying to bring electricity from Canada, hydropower, to New York, but it has not been possible because of the complicated regulatory frameworks that exist in between the different states that are on the way and the different entities that are on the way. And indeed, in many parts of the world, including in the developed world, the policies adopted and the regulatory frameworks adopted are pushing investment to go in the wrong direction, instead of going for climate action and instead of going for the implementation of other sustainable development goals. So there are two things that I'm asking you today. One is related to what you do in your companies, in your institutions, to align what you do with the Sustainable Development Goals, to align your operations, your objectives, your policies, and your perspective of development of your companies with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I believe this is good for business. And the second thing I'm asking you, and this was a request that I made to the board of the Global Compact, help us, and we are going to work together, country by country, to detect what are the regulatory and policy obstacles for companies to do the right thing in relation to climate and in relation to several other aspects that are relevant for companies that want to invest and want to invest in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. And so where is Sandra? It's there. I hope that after the meeting we had yesterday and taking profit of the contributions that all those that are around this room can give, that we are able to start looking systematically, country by country, on what are the obstacles and try then to use our leverage and to use your leverage to try to remove those obstacles. One thing is clear. This is a matter of moral obligation. We are all extremely privileged. Looking at the world, I think the people around this room is in, I'm sure, within the 1% or 2% more privileged people in the world. And that creates to each one of us a responsibility to do everything we can for the other 98%. And so I count on your strong commitment on this, but I count also on our capacity to work in an intelligent way to remove the obstacles that still exist for each one of us to do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary General, for those inspiring remarks. We are truly honored by your presence and your passion, sir. Now, it is my pleasure to invite His Excellency President Masisi of Botswana to give his remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Director of Ceremony. Distinguished guests, Excellencies, Captains of Industry, a very good afternoon. At the outset, let me thank most heartily the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and his team, led by Sanda, at the UN Global Compact for this very kind invitation to mark the beginning of a new session of the General Assembly. The organization of this event is a demonstration of your confidence in the role that the private sector plays, alongside governments like mine, in the advancement of the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals. We as Botswana also share very deeply this belief. This week, we'll engage the Global Africa Business Initiative, GABI, another landmark initiative established by the UN Secretariat and the business community, GABI leaders in the private sector, public and social sector, to invest in Africa, mobilize transformational change, and to reposition the continent in the global arena. Furthermore, GABI provides a platform for strategic high-level discussions between heads of state and government, the private sector leaders, investors, heads of multilateral organizations, and leading creative economy personalities, zeroing in on GABI's three focus themes for 2023, being energy access and energy transition, inclusive growth and trade, and digital transformation. In this current global context of scarce fiscal resources and present challenges, it is clear that we cannot solely rely on traditional donors. In this connection, I commend the private sector in this room and elsewhere for stepping forward. And I urge the private sector in stepping forward ensures that not only does it align itself to the SDGs, but it also ensures that it systematically fills the void that's left by governments because of their incapacity to fulfill all the obligations necessary in their development for the SDGs. My second ask is that private sector companies, as many governments increasingly are doing, develop an established, codified, long-term view of development and commit to that. We in Botswana have the National Long-Term Vision, 2036. Our neighbors have long-term visions, and these visions, which are in harmony with the SDGs, are very useful pointers to how to invest. Allow me to conclude by encouraging the UN Global Compacts to continue with this important work of facilitating the participation of the private sector in the work of the UN development system. And yes, I raise my hand, as I do on behalf of the other ESO states in Africa, in welcoming you and working with you. And we pledge we will write the policy framework, the legislative framework, and the governance framework for us to enjoy one another. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those remarks. We really are honored by your presence here today. Our next speaker is Esther Bayet, President and Chief Executive Officer of Novozymes. Esther is representing all the Forward Faster early mover companies in the audience today, and she will share with us why they signed up to the Forward Faster initiative. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you for this very kind introduction. Secretary General, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests. Last year, in a room maybe not as crowded as this one, the Secretary General asked us, the private sector, to raise our commitments on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And in Novozymes, the company that I work, one of the first companies that put the SDGs part of the business in the SDGs, we took that request very seriously. 1 year later, we're standing here showing there is progress, a little bit of progress on the right direction. 90% of our solutions, they enable a healthier planet or healthier lives. We have 63% reduction of our CO2 emissions, an SBTi target, a validated target on our path to carbon neutrality on scope 1, 2, and 3. So we also bring our suppliers with us. We engage with our peers and key industry partners. We have joined the board of SBTi to help on the ambitious trajectory and journey that we have ahead of us. We are very proud, and thank you, Chandra, for being one of the more than 100 companies joining Forward Faster and encourage communities to continue to raise the standards and the contributions to the SDGs. But there are roadblocks that they are bigger than us. You said you want to help. Let me give you 3 examples of areas that we need help. $7 trillion US. That's what we invested last year on subsidizing fossil-based alternatives, solutions of the past. Regulation that hinders the speed of penetration, not only here in New York, across all the place. We need harmonized ESG reporting standards. We need governments, policymakers, decision makers, all together to help us to accelerate to this world ahead of us. This fruitful collaboration is possible. I think we're going to hear about the president of Denmark talking about a beautiful collaboration we have in Denmark, where authorities work together with the companies and institutions to the path of carbon neutrality. It is possible, but we're small, and we need your help. So you offered the willingness to support. We ask for your help to drive that change. We're very proud of our contribution, but we're very tiny, and we cannot do this alone. We need to do this together, and I'm absolutely convinced that when we are together, we can forward move faster to this future ahead of us, to this future that our planet and the mankind deserves. And next year will come showing again the progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esther. We really are honored to have you here with us today. I love one of your interviews that I watched where you said we need to stop investing in the past. I think that is an excellent way forward. Now I'd love to invite back to the stage CEO of the Global Compact, Sanda Ojiambo.
Thank you, Esther. Leadership like yours is absolutely critical to the success of Forward Faster. And as you said, SG in the last 2 days has been asking private sector, where do we need his support? Where can we leverage the UN system? So thank you for continuing to articulate the fact that we do need the opportunity to sit together, private sector, governments, and really look at what blocks businesses from doing what they want to do best. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the context of Forward Faster and really invite us to continue to join in on the movement that has already started. As I said earlier, if we've learned anything over the last few years, we know that business cannot operate independently of its environment. And certainly, as Esther said, we need all of us together to drive progress. CEOs in our last survey reported that the top challenges were all existential to their work. So business leaders stated that the climate crisis, inflation, human rights, social justice, threats to public health were driving perspectives along with customer and stakeholder expectations, much more than the business product itself. And now more than ever, we know that companies are talking about sustainability, if not using the term directly, but certainly trying to find actions, pathways, and partnerships that demonstrate it even more. But it's not enough to make the progress that we so desperately need. And that's why, with the collaboration of some of you in the room, we designed Forward Faster, this initiative to amplify success and guide and support companies in areas where we know business is best positioned to impact global outcomes. And as you saw in the film, Forward Faster will focus on 5 key areas: gender equality, climate action, living wage, finance and investment, and water resilience, all to accelerate progress towards the 17 SDGs. Companies will be challenged to take ambitious and credible action and communicate their progress on specific, measurable sustainability targets. It's about creating an environment of high ambition, of accountability, ensuring that companies turn pledges into action. And in turn, Forward Faster will provide vital opportunities for business. Through reporting, companies can showcase their sustainability progress, especially those companies that are ahead of the curve. And I know a number of you here already are. We know that when companies commit to sustainable and inclusive business targets, they can build a competitive advantage for business, better mobilize capital, and position themselves on the cutting edge of global markets. Chief financial officers can turn these ambitious commitments into investments, including through capital spending, human capital, research and development, and marketing. And we know that purpose-driven companies are better at attracting and retaining talent, and discerning consumers will also demand and buy from such companies. So we invite all companies to join this exciting new initiative. Delighted to announce that 137 have joined. We need thousands more to get to where we need to get to. But at this point, I'd just like to acknowledge and thank all of those of you in the room who've already signed on to Forward Faster. Please stand because we'd like to give you a hand. David. Thank you. Thank you for being bold and showing that leadership. Coalitions of business leaders are very important and key to these partnerships. And as the Global Compact has already done, we've successfully built various partnership models to advance global, regional, sectoral, and programmatic partnerships or advocacy platforms to drive change at scale. And in that regard, I'm very pleased to announce initial plans to partner with the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, or ESCWA as we call it, to launch the Arab Business Leaders Coalition, a coalition that aims to unify voices across private sector sustainability across the Arab states, including actions to advance Forward Faster. Also exciting, has been mentioned, and very timely and really welcome to Madam Prime Minister, is a new CEO statement from Danish companies committing to setting and delivering on science-based net zero targets, all while taking actions to ensure a just and sustainable energy transition. My dear friends in the room, business partners, collaborators, excellencies and heads of state, this is just a glimpse of the future that we all want. We must all join forces to create a more prosperous and resilient global community. We truly must all move forward faster. I thank you for your kind attention and for being with us.
Thank you very much, Esther. Thank you, Sanda, for launching this exciting initiative here at the United Nations Global Compact, Private Sector Forum. My apologies. Thank you for launching it at the United Nations Global Compact's Private Sector Forum. Now it is truly my honor to introduce our next speaker, Her Excellency Mette Frederiksen, Prime Minister of Denmark, to give her remarks. Welcome, ma'am.
First of all, sorry for being delayed. I was caught together with my team by security in the streets of New York, and I wasn't really able to reach you before just a few seconds ago. And therefore, I will go directly to some of the points I would like to underline today at this very important meeting. There are only 7 years left now to deliver on our common sustainable development goals. Time is flying, and we are not even close to reaching them. As we have all seen in the past few months, the climate crisis is no longer a future scenario for our planet. It is happening right now, and now is time to act, and we don't have any time to waste. That means we all need to step up on our efforts to create a greener, a safer and a better future, and we have to make some real progress. And because of that, the private sector, of course, has a very special role to play. I am very happy to see many of you here today, because you have the technology, you have the solutions, and you have the innovation to address the challenges that we are facing worldwide. To be very honest with you, you also have the resources. You have the people. I think you have the ideas that can make a real difference. I know, however, that it's not always easy. That contribution to the SDGs is not always a straightforward business decision. And that is why we politicians, as we present today, need to provide the right framework and the tools that will make it easier for you to engage, so that we can form partnerships and we can move forward together to help unleash this extremely big potential. Denmark has decided to strengthen our development finance institutions so that more funds will go directly into climate financing. And today, we are making a new commitment to significantly strengthen Denmark's investment fund into developing countries. The goal is to triple its annual climate finance. And hopefully with that, we can expand the cooperation with Danish institutional investors as well. Climate change, as we all know, is a global, and it is a very urgent challenge, and everyone has to do their part. In Denmark, I believe that private and public partnerships have been the cornerstone of our green transition for many years. Today, I'm glad to say that more than 25 leading Danish companies published a CEO statement announcing your commitments to meet the net zero climate target. And some of you are here today. Thank you from a Danish perspective for your commitment. And thank you for stepping up and showing the right way forward. I look forward as a Danish Prime Minister to our continued cooperation. But ladies and gentlemen, if we are to reach our common goals, we need global action that is constant, and we need to coordinate closer. And we will not succeed without private companies and investors if we are not ensuring that you will be engaged even more. So hopefully this is not just another lunch, even though it seems that you have had nice food to eat. Hopefully this time, with only 7 years left before we reach the 2030, we will walk out of this room from this gathering these days and ensuring that this will actually happen, because the world are looking at us. So good luck, everyone, and please keep up your good work and do it a bit faster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Prime Minister, for wading through the streets of New York to join us today. And thank you so much for reminding us of the urgency to move forward significantly faster than we have been. Okay, it is now time for the interactive portion of our program. As you've heard more than once today, we are at the halfway mark to 2030, and the SDGs are indeed in trouble. So what's the main barrier preventing us from making the progress that we must? You will see this question and multiple choice answers appear on the screen. You will have a dedicated we've dedicated 12 minutes for you to discuss the question with those at your table. Your table lead will keep the discussion flowing, and in about 5 minutes or so, the discussion question and multiple choice answers will appear on the iPads at your table. We ask that you settle on one or a maximum of 2 answers as a table and record your vote on the iPads. And I'll be back to share the results. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you are having an incredible discussion, but I would actually love us to take a look at the results of those discussions at this time. Again, the question was, what is the main barrier preventing us from making substantial progress on the SDGs by 2030? And by 50%, a lack of strong policies or long-term targets was what was chosen by most of you. And interestingly, concern that action on one goal will hamper other goals only got 2%, even though the goals are interconnected. Well, I want to talk about this and so much more with our first panel. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we have our first panel beginning now. I would like to welcome to the stage Hein Schumacher, Chief Executive Officer of Unilever, Fernando Gonzalez, Chief Executive Officer of CEMEX, and Alice Lohr, Chief Executive Officer of Committed to Good. Welcome to the stage, all. Fantastic. Well, welcome everyone. Did you have a good discussion at your tables? Perfect. Well, I want to hear all about it. So let's get right into it. You saw the question, you had the conversations at your table. You know, we have the results that, well, they're no longer on the screen, but 50% of the folks voted that lack of strong policies or long-term targets is what's hampering us being able to accelerate action on the Sustainable Development Goals. Hein, I'd like to turn to you to talk about, you know, what you think of the polling, what it reflects, and specifically about living wages. I know Unilever is doing quite a bit on that, so I'd love you to touch on that as well.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Look, I'm not sure. Yeah, it works. We had a very engaging discussion actually. Although our table was quite clear, we were all on which was about the financial markets and the access to finance. So I think we were slightly surprised with the outcome. Yeah. But let me reflect on the outcome quickly. And perhaps we overlooked something. But actually, I don't think it's the problem of long-term targets. In fact, I believe we have too many long-term targets. You know, many companies have made big commitments for 2030, but very few.
I'm so sorry. Let's try another mic here. Let's try this one.
Well, if you take that. But this one works.
Okay, perfect.
But very few companies have actually made and given guidance on non-financial metrics for short-term targets. Just like we tend to give financial guidance on, you know, earnings and top-line growth, for example, for 1 year, we don't tend to do that for for non-financial targets and such as sustainability targets. And I think that would be probably a welcome change. So that would be my first response to the long-term targets. I mean, on living wage, we had a very living wage is something that Unilever has spearheaded for a while. We believe that it is an important construct, and it's going to help a lot in achieving SDGs, because we believe that there is a big multiplier effect from living wages. It actually enhances productivity. It keeps people at work. It redistributes income and wealth. And therefore, it's a huge contributor to avoiding that big inequality gap that is arising. The World Business Council for Sustainable Development has, I think, last month issued a paper around living wage, and acknowledging that it is important and actually defining it. But only very few companies, I think around 7% or so, are actually talking about living wages and potentially applying them. So this would be for a call out, and I'm happy that it is, of course, part of the framework that we're discussing today. From our side, it would be definitely a call out to move faster on the adoption of living wages.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And I love that you pulled in, more than just what we had on the screen there, because there are other factors that were not included in the options that we had. Alice, I'd love you to reflect first on the question itself, right? And then on the discussions, offer some insights from your table discussion.
Thank you. So I think we were very aligned with strong policies. We talked a lot about strong policies, but I actually agree with Hein. I think personally, access to finance is a big problem. If I look at it from the perspective of the countries that I work in fragile and conflict-affected countries across Africa and the Middle East. I have 10,000 staff. I was in Afghanistan in May, where I heard a lot of people. I was down there. 30% of my staff there are actually women, and everyone knows what's going on down there. So my main objective was to try and get my female staff back to work. Much like the UN, my staff have been impacted by that. About 80% are back working, and they're working in the field. What I try and do when I'm down there is I try and connect with as many of my staff as possible, and I was talking to them about what their problems are. Now, during the fall of Afghanistan in August, the banks collapsed. And that meant we had to work out how to pay our staff. So we used the Hawala networks, which I was very nervous about to begin with. We'd used it for beneficiary payments historically, but I was very nervous about this. I was sending millions of dollars in, and I've learned to become very trusting of them. And I think they're amazing. My staff now hate the banks. They don't want the banks. They don't get the right currency. They don't get the dollars that they can actually use. And they want to be paid by Hawala. One of my staff members actually got paid by a donkey that actually delivered his salary, because they don't have access to the banks. The banks are too far away. So I would actually like to talk about the fact that, or make a point that what the Secretary General was saying about the architecture, the financial architecture needs to change. And perhaps we should be looking to regulate these money service providers. I've had money returned to me from Yemen last month. I pay my staff in South Sudan through a money service provider in Syria and places like this. So for me, access to finance is the one that I think is really important.
Okay, now, 2 people on our panel have gone with a different answer than the rest of the room. Well, Hernando, where do you stand on this? Is that working?
Is it ready? Ready. I think I'm aligned with the room.
Okay.
But let me clarify a little the why. I'm in the cement industry, or heavy construction material industry, cement ready-mix. And this is one of the so-called hard-to-abate industries. We generate like 7% of total CO2 in the world. I mean, not the company, but the industry as such. And when I saw the question, it's the barriers or the issues that don't allow by 2030. Because by 2050, perhaps the answer might be different. But in the next 7 years, and looking at the experiences we have had in the cement industry, 80-90% of the challenges are public policy. We currently have lower carbon cements and ready-mix, for instance, that because of building codes not being updated to that type of new cements because of new materials, new processes, new ways of producing the cement, we cannot sell them. What is it that is needed for these cements and ready-mix with lower carbon content to be able and for customers in the construction industry to get access to those is policies. In the case of the US, ASTM, many of those type of cements currently cannot be sold in the market.
Interesting.
It's changing, and I'm sure that by 2030, that will change. Another very simple example. We still have many policies, for instance, waste. In most of the countries, we are still living with this idea of extract, produce, use, and landfill, which is nowadays really not the way to proceed. Let me take one example. We buy whatever number of products, we ourselves at home, and whatever is left, we put them in the waste bin, and they are taken. And most probably, with exception of some regions, but most probably, that will end up being landfill. And 50% of that waste that is landfill has or is an organic material that will produce methane, which is one of the main sources of production of methane, by the way. But you know what? That waste has a very high energy content that can be recovered with the proper policies.
So is there something the private sector can do in terms of the policy?
Well, it's lobbying, but lobbying together with associations and potentially with other industries with similar issues or objectives. But there is a limit to how far you can go through time on those issues. But to me, it is clear that those are, let me call short term from now to 2030. That's the short term. For the short term, at least in our case, we are fully focused on advocacy. We need public policy to be much more aligned to the idea of a green and circular economy. That will make, in our industry, that will make the difference.
I really wish we had a head of state on this panel with us. Hein, I'm going to come back to you on this. I know you have a comment that you want to get in, but beyond that, if we look, Fernando is looking at short term, 2030, or, and then you seem to be looking at long term possibly, or is it the same answer? Does it change if we look 2030 or 2050?
No, I actually, I think we're in the same boat here. Maybe Fernando can clarify that later. But I guess my point earlier was we need to be careful not to make more grand commitments. There are many commitments, 2050 on net zero, plastic reduction towards whatever, 2030, 2040, and so forth, and I can go on. I would encourage everyone to lay out a roadmap that includes the reduction that we're going to make in 2024, 25, 26. Because if I'm just very concerned that we wake up in 2028 and we're looking at a 2-year window towards 2030 that we have, and we're saying, oops, that will be a very steep mountain to climb. So I think, we need, strangely enough, we need to become more short-termistic on defining sustainability goals and actually make progress and avoid that massive hockey stick that is out there. So, that's what I would argue for. So please, no more grand commitments for the long term.
So basically, you're proposing that we have something that is similar to Forward Faster, and that might be able to help us?
Well, Forward Faster, that
is exactly what you're
absolutely,
that
because it makes it specific.
Yes, exactly.
I think we need to get into specifics. The next era of management of sustainability in companies, because of the transparency that will come because of adopted international accounting standards for non-financial metrics. We are there now. But let's avoid that we're only looking in the rearview mirror because of accounting standards. We have to look forward in terms of giving guidance, at least within the company, for, what's going to happen the next 6 months, what's going to happen the next 12 months. There is no time to lose.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Alice, 50% of the room believes it's lack of strong policies. You believe it's financing.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, please, go ahead. I would not want to interrupt.
My regulatory point, I think, is about policy as well. But I do agree that there are some targets to be made, as Hein said. I think targets are really important. I think the long-term targets have been set. There's 17 SDGs, there's 169 targets. What we did at CTG was we adopted 3 sustainable development goals. We tried to make it realistic, to come back to what you were saying.
Right.
Small amounts, but looking at our sphere of influence. And I think the SG was saying earlier that it's really important that the business, the private sector actually does what they can do. We're operating in conflict-affected countries, and so we looked at where we could have a large amount of impact.
Right.
These countries, a lot of them women are marginalized, so we looked at SDG 5. We looked at job creation, so SDG 8 and SDG 16. For me, I think when we're talking about policy and targets, I do see a challenge with public-private partnerships. I think SDG 17 is something that we need to be working a little bit more towards. I think the private sector, certainly from my perspective, I think Unilever does have an awful lot of public engagement, but you're a much bigger organization than I am. But I think the private sector should be involved in the policy design, in the program development, and particularly one working in fragile and conflict-affected countries. I would see more people coming towards us. There are not a lot of international actors operating these environments. They're very high-risk environments. They're high risk for foreign investors. And so for me, I would like to see more public and private partnerships happening at the country level, at the field level.
Absolutely. I think we're all agree here that the barriers are interconnected. There are multiple reasons that we're not moving forward, and that we do need forward faster, where it's bite-sized, it's actionable, and you focus on your sphere of influence, right? You decide, what is it that you can control, and you do that. Now, I want to throw it out if anyone has any last words. We are 30 seconds to the close of our conversation, so please, any last thoughts from any of you?
I think that would be a bit pedantic to sort of give the last word here, but I'll say something and that gives you time. Now, I wanted to say that I was very pleased to hear from the CEO of Novozymes today something very important, I think, which is the validation of the efforts through SBTI. I think we sometimes underestimate that. I mean, if there's no policy making, the private sector can still make sure that there is objectivity in the things to accomplish. And if we do that well, I am sure that policy making will actually it will trail a bit, but it will come very fast. So a big call out, I would say, for everyone to apply for that, not just in your scope 1 and 2, but also your scope 3, because emissions and net zero emissions, look, we can do many things, but that is the one that stands out and we simply have to achieve.
Thank you. Fernando, I'm going to give you the last.
One comment related to, like I don't know when, but maybe around 3 years ago, I'm not sure. We started observing a difference in how climate change was evolving, or climate action. Before, it was kind of a philosophical thing, sort of isolated. And about 3 years ago or so, we started observing a systematic change. Since then, we decided to define strategies merging the idea of sustainability and business. Our industry is transforming, and it will be transformed. So we don't think SDGs or sustainability or climate change and our cement business on the other side. The industry is being transformed, and we are transforming the business, including this type of issues. I agree with your comment in terms of, in these last 3 years, and because this new momentum and systematic everything, most of companies, including ourselves, have been promising. This has been a market of promises, more and more and more. And if a competitor of you, gives more, then you give more and more. I think this is going to be time to prove delivery. How is it that the business sector in different industries is delivering? So I think on top of having all the areas in intents and promises and the likes, now is going to be the time to prove that we are efficiently delivering on our targets.
I really love that you said that. I'm a chemical engineer by education, and I am very much the numbers person, you know, and luckily I can also speak. We generally are either one thing or the other, but, you know, manage to bring both in. But, you know, I think it's so important that we are analytical about how we move forward here. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Hein. Thank you, Alice. Thank you so much for having this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was a fantastic discussion. Thank you again to our panelists, and thank you all so much for participating in the polling. Now on to the next segment of this interactive portion of our program. As we've heard from the Secretary General today, shifting corporate capital towards the SDGs will be vital to achieving the 2030 agenda. I think two of my panelists wanted to be on this panel. But what is the biggest leverage point we have to accelerate SDG investments? As before, this question and multiple choice answers will appear on the screen. You have 12 minutes to discuss at your table. Please, I will come up and share a reminder when you have about 5 minutes left. Discuss the questions, pick one or two answers at the table, and I'll be back to share the results. If I may have your attention, thank you so much for your incredible discussions, and thank you for taking time to vote. By 54%, public-private partnerships to accelerate behavior change in the economic and financial system is what was chosen by this room. Again, not exactly what I was expecting, but it's a good thing because I now get to talk about it with some incredible human beings that are here with me today. I would like to now welcome our next panel. First, I'd like to welcome Balaji Balogun, Chief Executive Officer, Chapel Hill Denim, Fabio Barbosa, Chief Executive Officer, Natura Co, Maria Fernanda Garza, Chair, International Chamber of Commerce, ICC. Please, welcome to the stage. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Balaji, I heard some giggles as I read the results. I really did feel like it was the Oscars that was happening there. So, you know, I'm very excited to hear. So tell us, I will let you go first. Please, give us some insights. What do you think about the answer we got?
I think it was the right answer. When we think about perhaps the most significant impact that we can have on shifting and accelerating the pace towards the energy transition, as well as accelerating the rapid attainment of the SDGs, I do think we will require a paradigm shift in global financial markets and the global financial system. If I speak from an African perspective, Africa is probably the region of the greatest need, and its largest economy, Nigeria, like many of the other 50-plus African countries, has very significant deficits in infrastructure, in healthcare, in education, in housing. But more importantly, it has no ability, actually on its own, to deliver the energy transition. And this isn't an issue just about capital or financing needs. It's about expertise more than anything else. And when you sit and you think about the global financial system today, we will need to change some of the paradigms, with which, we've operated. We've tended to do quite a lot through government, and the public sector will need to utilize much more private capital. We need to think about the importance of local currency, because continually financing, poor people in foreign currencies, simply impoverishing them. We need to think about using more guarantees than just providing debt. We need to think much more about how we get institutional capital as opposed to just ODA, investing in the rapid attainment of the SDGs. And why is all of this important? There's over $120 trillion sitting in the world's largest asset managers. All of the global ODA last year, and that was a record year, I believe, for ODA, was less than 0.3 trillion. So all of the world's development banks, all of the world's development financial institutions, doing their best, just do not have the capacity to move the needle. But a 1% allocation by the world's largest institutional asset managers, for whom today Africa is not on their radar screen, can change the course of that continent's history. And I believe very much that demography is destiny. Goldman Sachs tells us that in 2075, and these will be my last comments, 34% of the world's population will live in Africa. If you took all of the countries of Africa and you treated them as one free trade zone or one economic zone, it'll be the third most important economic area in the world after India and China. So if Africa was to industrialize the way that the rest of the world has done, it will be completely damaging for global emissions. The real challenge will be how can we support Africa to at once industrialize, but also more importantly, decarbonize.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Maria, the Secretary General says that we need to increase financing by at least $500 billion per year. How can corporations and industry do that?
That's a great question. But first of all, please let me thank Sandra and the whole UN Compact team for your partnership in organizing this event today, but most importantly, in bringing to us Forward Faster, this initiative that has really a huge potential to help companies make a bigger and faster impact. And we have very clearly here today, that is the most important issue. Throughout the day, we heard that we are in an inflection point in history, definitely. And the Sustainable Developing Goals, these goals that we all develop together and agree on them, are derailing right in front of our eyes. But if we change course now, we still can get there. And that is why, yes, absolutely. I really think, though, that we can make it if we really all work together. But as you mentioned, one of the most vital foundations paths in order to achieve this is precisely finance and the finance market. There are $4.2 trillion each year needed in order to finance the SDGs in the developing countries. And we know that we're nowhere near to be there. Most of the capital that we will need will have to come from private sector. And we recognize the critical role, and everybody from the answers can say that we recognize the critical role that the private sector plays. But let me reiterate this. This cause for ICC is very, very important. It's part of what we are. ICC was founded over a century ago, in 1919, with a clear mission to make international trade as a driver of peace and prosperity across the world. And to me, there is no doubt today that this mandate means maximizing the contribution of international trade to meeting the UN SDGs. And the goal net zero and nature positive and pollution free for 2050. But in the last panel, we heard very, very clear. There's been a lot of commitments. There's been a lot of expectations being created. And I really like very much what Hein said, that we need to have shorter goals in order to achieve it. We know that the investments in the SDGs are a huge opportunity to make things right, and that there remains a significant scope of trade to play an even greater role in order to be able to achieve these goals. there are 22 trillion worth of goods that flow across the world every year. This is a figure that is expected to reach almost 35 trillion by the end of this decade. So the question still is, how can we align this market with the development and climate goals? And to answer this, we have to look at the trade at the micro level. I am a small business owner. I know what it is. Specifically, we need to better align all of those millions of trade transactions that take place every day. And to do this, we need to find the cooperation between both the banks and the corporates to have a robust framework to assess the sustainability of individual transactions. And we don't have that right now. That is missing, and that is where we should start working. But it's not an easy task. I can elaborate later. So,
Thank you so much for that, Fabio. Like Maria, I agree that we can make it. You know, we can hit our target in 2030, but the financing has to be there. Give us some insights from your table's discussion on what the thoughts are on how to increase financing.
I think in our group we were talking more about the idea of a partnership between public and private sector, and I will go just say, I mean. Natur is a company which was born with the idea of incorporating nature and products and gender, and we have achieved quite a lot. By the way, just to say, I hate the false dilemma that either companies look at the environmental issues, social issues, or they look at profit. We cannot look at both. That's not correct. You can look at both, and they've been working on that. I say, and we are actually going faster towards preserving forest, incorporating biodegradable products. But I want to be very specific on one answer in terms of what can be done on this private-public partnership, which is the solution of the carbon market, the Article 6. I see in Brazil many companies, many funds, and I participate in one of them, ready to invest in restoration of degraded areas. Some of them are already doing, and they are waiting for, why don't we sort this out, regulate? In that case, there would be much more money coming, and we can accelerate, and the private sector will come. I mean, this is at sight. I mean, it can be done, but it's not. Therefore, it precludes us from doing investments, from absorbing carbon, from having all the motivation that companies need in order to get private sector to move into that. So being very specific, I think that's one thing we could work on.
We've heard that from multiple people. Be specific, have it be tangible. And also with Forward Faster, the reporting mechanism, I think, is also a key. The transparency. You know, let's shine a light on what folks are doing, who's saying what, and who's actually getting the job done. Maria, I want to talk about the ICC standards for sustainable trade finance and how that can help, please.
Thank you. We have taken the task that together with 250 leading banks and corporates, we're putting the final touches together for a framework that we hope will represent a really big step forward in terms of driving finance to accelerate the SDGs and the Paris Accord. And we are hoping to introduce it at the COP28. We are involved in consultation with more than 500 companies from a variety of sectors and geopolitics. And we will be ready for COP28 to apply this on a pilot basis to some of the most emission and resources intensive industries like textiles. We launched the textiles last year, but we will continue energy, agriculture, and automotive sectors. And while this is a very important step, it is only the start of this very long journey to set global trade on a path towards maximizing its contribution to the global sustainability. And there is only so much that private sector can do on its own. I mean, I don't know how to say this with different words. We have been hearing it from everybody. We really need to align what we're doing on the private sector with the government. We need to look not just on the current public, we need to review the public policies. It was very clear stated by the panelists in the last panel. but we need to align the speeches to the actions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we are fast running out of time on this panel, but I do not want to end our conversation today without a clear call to action to the people in this room. So, for each of you, if you, in 30 seconds, hopefully significantly less, what would be your call to action to the people in this room who can make this difference, right? We have 7 years and 15% of the SDGs, only 15% are on target. So what is your call to action to the people in this room?
I think the biggest markets in which you can make a really significant shift are the markets that are most backward, and that's predominantly Africa. A small fraction of the capital managed by the global asset management industry invested in infrastructure, invested in a just energy transition, invested in agriculture, in digital and creative economies, and in gender, can change the course, I think, of Africa's economic history and the rapid attainment of the SDGs. And we can deliver in 7 years a very, very significant scale shift if we lift along that last billion people.
Okay, that's Balaji's call to action. Maria, what's yours?
3 top priorities that we need from the governments in order to start action. We need the right investment environment. We need the right and the appropriate incentives, targeted policies, interventions to reduce and lower risks. We need also to translate the SDGs framework into clear financing and investment plans. And most important, we need the conversation about the SDGs, investment, and all the needs it has to be brought to a broader context of discussion on redesign of global financial architecture.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Fabio,
quick call to action would be do it. I normally say I do not have any idea how to solve the problem of the world, but I know that if everyone cleans its sidewalk, the world will be clean. So if you start doing on your own private life, on your company, or on your state, or municipality, or neighborhood, or whatever, you can change the world. And in a message of optimism, you'll say, if my generation did not leave a better world for our children, we did leave better children for our world. I think the social consciousness of the...
Say that again, please.
So the social consciousness, environmental consciousness, ethical consciousness that my generation, as a generation, did not have. I'm very optimistic on that. And they have to come to power to participate more and more, and this will be a better world.
I could not follow that up with anything else. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all so much, Balaji, Maria, Fabio. Thank you so much for a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, we have come to the point where we're going to say goodbye. Saddens my heart to see you go. This has been such a great event. Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end. I hope you are leaving as energized as I am. The conversations we've had, not just up here, not just the speeches that have been shared, but the discussions that you've had amongst yourself, which I've had the privilege of listening to a few of, have really shown us that we can make a difference. We can achieve our goals. We can move forward faster. Thank you all so much. Again, my name is Tolu Olubumi, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you.